Welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. The Pharmacy Leaders Podcast is a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, with interviews and advice on building your professional network, brand, and a purposeful second income from students, residents, and innovative professionals.
Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast. I think the last new pharmacy school opened on Monday, and we're done. No more new pharmacy schools. Yay! I think that's the case. Looking at the website, I see that there's only one college in pre-candidate status, and that's Carey University. I thought they needed like a year to have, their class had to go through a year to get candidate status. I'm not sure exactly. I thought the Texas schools, I know the Texas schools have candidate status, but I could have sworn they weren't opening till now either, but I don't know. I don't have the energy to look it up. But anyway, hopefully we are done. Hopefully that was the last new pharmacy school. And as PharmCast admissions opened up last week, we can start looking for reduction in college graduates as we go forward. And I'll look at some numbers that should help you kind of figure things out. But let's talk a little bit about this new school. It is the Carey University School of Pharmacy. And I think they got $1 million from the Gulf oil spill. They got some support from local people, but they're filling a rural need in the Mississippi Gulf. Interesting that the new AACP president is also, I think, the dean at at Ole Miss, which is 5 hours up the road. But that's completely different. They're completely different worlds. It's just like Maryland and Baltimore City versus University of Maryland Eastern Shore in rural Eastern Maryland. But let's see. So I had read they had 64 students, but they wanted to have 64 students. I think that was their cap. And then they had a press release on the 12th that said they had 60, and now they're down to 58. So it looks like 58 students to start Carey University off. And so what would make 64 students go to the only college in the country that's in pre-candidate status? It's faith-based, and I know that's important to a lot of people, and it's nice that we've had these types of schools pop up, and I don't know if there was really room for that, especially when most of the schools were state schools. It's a 3-year accelerated program, and it's $40,000 per year, so $120,000 for private education. That's right around the middle, somewhere like that. I'm not sure what housing costs in that area. I think the school is about 5 or 10 miles from the actual coast, so I just don't know. It's the in-state school. The University of Mississippi is a titan. I mean, they're the number 25 school in the country. They're phenomenal. I think one of the best schools in the country. I think that number 25 is actually underreported, especially if you look at the quality of life. It's an SEC school, although I went to Gainesville for undergrad, so barring our football differences, the University of Mississippi has great leadership, great programs, and has been a great school. But I wonder if this is kind of something that we've seen. University of Maryland Eastern Shore in Maryland, California Health Sciences, and there's another school out there, Pacific, I think. Both of those are in the Central Valley. So I think one of the new West Texas school opened up. I'm not that terribly familiar with Texas geography, but I think it's not Tyler, which is outside of Dallas. It's Texas El Paso. So we're seeing that the openings of these final schools there was some reason to them, and I'll go through them. But if you look at manpower, though, the argument kind of doesn't necessarily hold water that there was a need for more pharmacy students in Mississippi. The manpower number was at 2.0 in quarter 4 of 2017, and there was so little data in quarter 1, quarter 2 of 2018 that can't really make a judgment. And just a reminder, what do those numbers mean? Well, if you've got a demand balanced with supply, it's a 3. If demand is less than pharmacist supply, then it's 2. And then if it's much less, it's 1. So a 2 is about as low as I've seen on the state level. I think Tennessee was at 2. Well, they got 6 pharmacy schools, but they bounced back up. So I don't know how necessarily accurate those are, but I'm going to tell you a couple of things about the press release that I've seen, and I think that AACP kind of missed the boat on this one in terms of what students really want. They're trying to convince the students that pharmacy is a good profession because of this, that, and the other, but honestly, this Generation Z has more access to information than any other in the history of our country. So they know what's going on with the job market. They know what's going on with residencies. They know. So it's not convincing them that pharmacy is a good deal. We actually just need to make it a good deal again. And in the YFP podcast, thanks for the shout out, Tim Ulbrich, he mentioned the need for innovation. And I think under the thumb of accreditation, it's very tough to innovate. And Kevin Yee also talked about, is the cost of pharmacy school worth it on YouTube? Though I think the numbers Kevin was like, it's like $400,000 after everything's said and done. And he was talking about 10 years out. The average pharmacy student pays back their loans in 14 and a half years. But let's see. So, let's say they graduate in 3 years from this William Carey University School of Pharmacy. What are they competing with? Well, they're really competing with the New Orleans market, and you're talking about Xavier and I think University of Louisiana Monroe's over there, and then the new East Texas School in Dallas. I don't know if it goes that far. And then to the north, obviously, you've got Ole Miss, and then Tennessee borders it on the north with 6 colleges of pharmacy. And then you've got the Alabama schools to the east, and then in the south, you've got the Panhandle, but the Panhandle is part of Florida, and Florida has a ton of pharmacy schools too. So it kind of makes sense that Mississippi might have a lower need for pharmacists because there are a ton of schools around there. But I understand the desire to reach into these rural areas, and I think that's something you have to do if you want to expand pharmacy's reach. I'm going to talk about the marketing mix, product, price, place, and promotion. But in pharmacy school's case, place, I think, trumps everything. And let me talk a little bit about this press release that they had. So they had they have a campus in Tradition, and that's the one that's like 5-10 miles from the coast. And so when they give these kind of profiles of the class, so the average age is 27 and a half years. I graduated at 24. So if you're coming out of 2 years pre-pharmacy, you would be 20. So we have a number of, and I don't want to call it non-traditional because I don't think traditional exists anymore, but they talk about someone who is married with 2 children, served 5 years in the Army National Guard, a SWAT team member who's still working his full-time job on the K-9 unit, and they're talking about how they're going to have their support networks there, how they don't have to drive 5 hours up to where Ole Miss is to go to school. They're coming back to school, and they get their degree in 2 years and 10 months. So it's not even a 3-year program. They had a little problem, I think, with the building, so they don't get in until October. That's kind of a shame. But I think they're backing this up by saying, hey, we're a rural state. We just don't have people wanting to go into rural environments. Why don't we move a pharmacy school into a rural environment where maybe we could get those people from the Gulf who want to be in the rural environments and do that. And I know that purpose is a big, big thing with Gen Z. They want to feel like they're doing something, whether it's ecological, whether it's faith-based, whether it's some kind of purpose to what they're doing. And I think that that's the only way this school could possibly have competed with all the schools that are there, especially, a top-tier school like Mississippi, in that, you've got the faith-based component, you've got the accelerated component, and it's going to be cheaper at $40,000 per year than somewhere else would be. So in terms of, pharmacy manpower, it's just under 3, and we kind of know that. It's a bit over. The number of pharmacists is a bit over what we really need in terms of community. But they got so few reporting from the states, they didn't even release a state's map for this quarter. But I discovered something new that I didn't know of, and that's that the institutional PDI is 2.57. So what does that mean? So again, the numbers are 1. So 3 is balanced with supply, and demand is less than pharmacist supply. So basically saying that hospitals don't really need too many pharmacists as an aggregate. That it's really, when you're saying something national, obviously there's pockets where there's great need, there's pockets where there's not much of a need. But that PDI of 2.57, I don't know if it's because the second quarter falls just before the new residency grads get out, because residency grads get out July 1st or June 30th, whatever it is. So is it that it's just that time of year where, you got 4,500 residency graduates, they're obviously going to take up a ton of jobs. Is that why that institutional PDI is so low? And I don't know, because I didn't even know that existed until just today. But if you want to find it for yourself, it's pharmacymanpower.com/setting.php, or you can go to the left-hand nav bar and you can see PDI by setting at pharmacymanpower.com. So as I said, Pharmacast opened last week, and I want to talk a little bit about what the YFP team talked about with Deeb Eid. I apologize, I can't pronounce his last name, and because I think he mentioned just the first name in the episode. I don't remember. I listened to it twice. But Tim Ulbrich talked about a number of applications, and I think he was talking about total applications, not just Pharmcast. So I'm just going to go from Pharmcast numbers. The applications kind of look like phenytoin. It's like, we're full, and anything else is going to be toxic to the body if you add any more phenytoin in terms of pharmacy students graduating. But these decline in applications, it's not really a lot. So let me explain. The applications themselves are down 20% from last year to this year. So like 11,000. This is just Pharmcast numbers. But there's only 500 fewer applicants. So the sky is not falling, and pharmacy schools will continue to get people into pharmacy school. However, there's a real problem right now with a couple of things, and I want to explain some terms to you. So the first thing is to watch for increased melt. So melt is you've accepted pharmacy school for fall and you don't show up. And so I guess that's melt from the example before. They had 60 and now they have 58. So that's melt from the time that you thought somebody was going to come in to the time that they didn't come in. And they call it melt because it happens over the summer and the students just kind of melt away and they're just not coming for fall. And there's various reasons for that. But watch for increased melt, because after somebody gets accepted, there's buyer's remorse. And the Pharmcasts and AACP's behind the Pharmcast has made it all or nothing with early assurance. So if you apply to early assurance, you're only allowed to apply to one school. You get an answer, I think, in like September. And if you do that, you've committed to that school. You're not allowed to go back into the Pharmcast unless you get permission from the school. And I don't know. I mean, if I'm 18 to 20 years old, I'm going to think, yeah, this is where I really want to go. But then I start hearing about other places, learn about other things. Maybe a friend goes to a different school or, something like that. And early assurance, you cannot change your mind. You are out for the entire year. Now, you can go to pharmacy school the following year and I feel that is extremely draconian for, that population. We're saying, okay, we want you to go to the school that you want to go to say that, okay, well, you've got to know, like, if you're going to do early assurance, especially as much as they're pushing it. Like, 80% of the schools have early assurance, and it's just really not necessary. So anyway, watch for that increased attrition, watch for increased melt as they go towards it, because what's happening is they're being locked in to the school that they've chosen. Did I put the numbers? No, I didn't. So in terms of actual applications per person, so just like when you read this William Carey University College of Pharmacy article, you realize that these students were saying, in my town or not at all. And that's why I'm really confused. University of Florida, I think, closed one of their campuses. I think Oklahoma closed one of their satellite campuses. Maryland's closing one of their satellite campuses. Students are saying, you need to come to us if you want us to go to pharmacy school, because we're not going to drive 5 hours out of town or to wherever it is in the state. And if you look at the states that came into this college, there were only 5, and then only 2 out of region. So maybe somebody from Mass, I think a couple from North Carolina. But pharmacy schools are very much regional. I only applied to Maryland, but obviously I'm single case study. But really with pharmacy schools, unlike medical schools where people are like, I will go where you take me. Because to get into medical school, it's a 40% acceptance rate across the board. So after all is said and done, 40% of the people that applied to medical school are going to get into medical school. So when you're looking at this, it's not a huge drop in applications. It is a huge drop in applications, but it's just not a huge drop in the actual number of people that are applying. If you divide 500 by the number of schools, 143, you get somewhere close to 4. So each pharmacy school lost 4 people. And obviously it's not exactly like that, because, the Minnesotas and the, UCSFs and the North Carolinas, all those, top 5 in the, U.S. News poll or whatever, they're going to get their applicants and they're going to get their class filled, and there's not going to be any, going down. But there are a couple of schools, 3 actually, that are really, really taking a pounding this year. And I think that what the students are saying is that I have so many choices, I can get exactly what I want, and I can do it in, it's like that old, I can name that tune in such and such number of notes. I can get into pharmacy school with 1 application, or I can get into pharmacy school with 2 applications. In this case, it's 3.19. So it went from 3.89, I think, to 3.19, something like that. Anyway, the point is that pharmacy schools are still getting plenty of applicants. They're not getting the applications. However, there is a massive brain drain. And what I mean by that is that the applicants, as represented by their writing scores, are absolutely horrendous at the bottom 25. So the PCAT, I can't find it. They changed it from 1 to 6 to 1 to 5, and they said that it doesn't really correlate over. But when you're interpreting a PCAT score, and I've got the 2016 one, but you'll get what I'm saying. They used to label it as score 0.1. If you get a 1 on the writing, it's inadequate. Their frequency, they basically can't. It's unclear how the discussion of the problem or solution presented relates to the problem stated in the prompt. They didn't answer the question. They have no idea what they're doing. Then you get to score 0.2, where they're marginally successful, and at times the meaning of the response may be impaired, not a cohesive structural plan. Basically, they're still not able to convey the message. Okay, somewhere around 3 is satisfactory, so that's the middle. So the middle would be 2.5, I guess, in this new criteria, I guess you would say. Although because the 3 would be, I don't know. Anyway, adequately applies the conventions of language. But the issue is this: if our role now is articulating to other health providers how we believe there should be a change, to say, don't worry about the ipratropium. There's only 1% systemic absorption or something like that when you see this huge drug interaction. But the numbers show that we've lost almost a full point in the last 2 years on the PCAT, which means that the students coming in, the bottom 25% of that PCAT pool cannot clearly articulate in 30 minutes an answer to a question that's posed to them. And that's a real concern. The fact that that it's dropping so significantly so fast, and they did drop the verbal reasoning a couple years back, and I just wonder if people are just applying because they're like, oh, cool, there's no verbal reasoning thing, and the reading score went down a little bit. Anyway, I think that pharmacy schools are going to be in real trouble because, man, you do not want people that have trouble reading and writing. That is bad news bears in terms of application. We don't want, Harmon, this is from, Accepted the movie, but we don't want to turn our schools into the South Harmon Institute of Technology. I'll just leave it at that. Their reasoning, though, for removing the verbal ability for more chemistry and biology time, and they write this down right in the PCAT thing, and this is stupid, because the MCAT is 7.5 hours long. The PCAT is 3.5 hours long. So we do half an MCAT, and they took out verbal ability because you need time for biology and chemistry. I mean, seriously, you couldn't have added 45 minutes to make it 4 hours long? I mean, you've got a 6-hour NAPLEX you expect somebody to take at the end of pharmacy school. Do you really want someone coming in and softening the blow? I really think what happened was that the verbal ability scores were just so bad that they're just, or that the schools were just ignoring it and just saying, look, we just care if you can pass organic. We just want you to pass biochem. So anyway, doesn't make any sense at all to me. So I think that pharmacy schools are going to have a real problem coming up here as the quality of the applicants in reading and writing has gone down dramatically. The biggest problem that I think that we're going to see with the pharmacy schools, though, is this, I guess I want to call it the recommendation asterisk. So when somebody asks me, should I become a pharmacist? The immediate answer is a question. Well, why do you want to become a pharmacist? Are you taking out loans? Are you moving with your family? Are you depending on a job right away? Are you hoping for part-time work? And it comes down to me and other pharmacists just being honest. We want to be honest with the person. We want to be fair. And we want to tell them, hey, this is what's going on. And we're not sure. And I tell them I'm not sure. But I can tell you if I went to try to get a job now, I don't know if I could get one in pharmacy. I don't know that I want one, but I wouldn't want to go into retail or necessarily hospital. I just have other stuff that I just enjoy doing. But I think that it's been made really hard for us to recommend the pharmacy profession because of the number of schools, because of the jobs and all those things. But I never ever, want to ever have a podcast episode where I provide problems with no solutions. So the first thing is that my view is that pharmacy schools need more campuses. Let me make clear, I'm not saying that pharmacy schools need more students. They need less. What they need is more campuses. They need to reach students where they are, and they need to respond to the needs that the students are saying, which is we want to do things that are important, and we want to serve in our neighborhoods in the places that we're from. And I think that that new pharmacy school I want to say it's in Biloxi, but it's in Tradition, but Biloxi's like just south of it. I think that in kind of hits all those marks. It's it's supposed to serve the rural area. It's faith-based. It's only 3 years. It's kind of like Medical College of Wisconsin up, I think it's in Milwaukee. where they just took 40 students, I think. And, they're like, okay, well, here's an accelerated program, $120,000, a little bit cheaper than the rest. Okay, but I think that in terms of the marketing mix, product, price, place, and promotion, so much of what happened at AACP was promotion. It's just that we're not reaching them. It's just that we need to talk to them. It's just that we need to create a different message. It's just that we need to do branding. No, you just need to move. You just need to move to where they are. That's what pharmacy students are saying. Pharmacy students en masse have stopped applying to UCSF. And that is the most expensive, probably the most expensive zip code now. I'm probably beating Chevy Chase and other places where you could find a pharmacy school. So it's clear that the students are saying you need to come to us. You need to move these campuses and have satellite campuses and things like that where we're going to be. The second thing is I think the product. If you're like picking a school and you're trying to pick the school that you want, it kind of goes to place a little bit. The better location, they can live at home, they can be in their own state to save money, things like that. I think a lot of the things that pharmacy schools think are important are not important to these students coming in. What's your NAPLEX pass rate? I don't think as a student coming in, I would ever think I'm part of the percent that would not pass. So I think it's in many ways irrelevant. Even if the pass rate's as low as, what was that one, like 55%, I still put myself in the 55 that's going to pass. So I don't think that that's really a thing. Like when people are going in like, oh, we have a good NAPLEX pass rate. More likely to get a job or residency. Well, these schools are putting up that, the respondents to their survey are, employed at, these ridiculous numbers like 98%, 100%, even though so basically what I'm saying is the math doesn't fit. They're saying their 3-month employment rate is 98%, but their pass rate on the NAPLEX was something like 80%. And so the math just doesn't work. In terms of getting a residency, like picking a school because you can get a residency, even if I did understand what that meant, I don't think it's really matters anymore because residencies are watered down now. I don't mean the residency experience. What I mean is that the prestige of a residency. So when I went to pharmacy school and we talked to the PharmDs, like we were in awe of those PharmDs. Like these guys were badasses. These guys, can I say ass? These guys were badasses. We were like, whoa, you guys are PharmDs. I mean, these were super clinical, had the pager on, definitely dating myself there. And these guys were rock stars, and then everybody got a PharmD. So when they said, I'm a PharmD, we're like, yeah, there's 100 of us that got a PharmD too, And so now before, the big residency explosion from the last couple of years because they want everyone to do a residency by 2020, now it's not so special. Hey, I got a residency. Okay, well, 4,500 other people got a residency. And what I'm kind of disappointed in is that for those PharmDs that did that extra 2 years and that really wanted it and were really just at the top of the class in terms of wanting clinical and all that, it dilutes what they've done. And the residency thing is the same case. So there's these students that are phenomenal, national applicants, and their accomplishment is now watered down with somebody who's, at residency number 4,500, if you could ever number them that way. And I think that's kind of disappointing. I know what the intention was. The intention was to make everybody clinical, but the PDI is saying that, all right, sorry, well, it's actually better to try to get a job in community than it is to try to get one in a hospital because the PDI is 2.57 instead of 3 and change for community. So, again, I think this all comes back to Brandon Dyson and TLDR Pharmacy, who said, you have to be true to yourself. Don't even think about trying to get to where you think you're supposed to go, but just kind of follow what is really in your heart to do, whether it is community, whether it's residency, whether it's something completely different. But the product, Accreditation really, in many ways, commoditizes the pharmacy school. They try to brand themselves as different, but honestly, with students applying to 2 or 3 schools, or 3 schools on average, they're making clear that they've got the choices they need, they know which ones they want, and they're just going to pick the best of the 3 that they get into. And a lot of times, it's location. Number 3, price. So you would think that price is at the very top. Like the cheaper the school is, the better off. And this is something also talked with Tim Ulbrich about, and that's the monopoly money problem. So when you're getting to pharmacy school, there's actually no change in your current situation. It actually might get better. So let's say you worked like 30 hours a week or something like that while you were going to undergrad, or 20 hours a week while you're going to undergrad. And now you take out loans and don't have to work at all. You just go to school. Your situation actually improved and your income stayed the same. Does that make sense? Like you're getting loans so you don't actually have to work. So you're in better shape in that way. Obviously down the line it's going to hit you. But what I guess I'm saying is that, this monopoly money that, when you're saying, all right, well, 120 for college, 130 for college, what doesn't matter to me. So let's look at the new schools and how much they cost for their entire tuition run and see, what kind of advantages that they've given us. Now, University of Texas, El Paso, this has to be a mistake. They said that the tuition is $15,000 to $17,000 per year, which would put their tuition somewhere between $60,000 and $68,000 for the 4 years. The reason I say I think that's a mistake is because if you look at Texas Tyler, it's $17,000 per semester, and then they get that $11,000 summer. So it just doesn't make sense to me that if you're in the UT system, that one would be exactly half of what another one would be. But if UTEP is really $17,000 per year, I would definitely consider that as an option. But I really think it's going to be like $17,000 per semester. Next one in terms, and we're going from cheapest to, or least expensive to most expensive, and least expensive in terms of cost for the entire 4 years. Binghamton University in New York, I think they're only at $26,510. When did $26,000 become an only? But only $106,000 in tuition, and of the new ones, and that's what I'm talking about. But you graduate in 4 years. So William Carey School of Pharmacy in Biloxi, or just north of Biloxi, that's 3 years, $120,000. So I was going to say with the 64 students, they that would have been $2.5 million, but now with 58 students, you lose 6 times 40, 240,000, so it's about $250,000. So now they're down to $2.25 million that came in from this new class. Medical College of Wisconsin, so their tuition went up $42,500 from $40,000 a year. I could have sworn it was 30. Maybe I was just seeing things. But 3 years, $127,500. They've just got 40 students there at that campus. And I think this is the model that you're going to see. 3-year school, working with med school, so to save costs, or maybe on, they're using classrooms for another building, but kind of creating a medical complex. Larkin in Miami, 3 years, $134,000, I think is what the total cost is. Texas Tyler works out to be $144,000, I think. And then just for fun, I wanted to put, the best school in the country, UCSF, and just say, where do they fit? And I couldn't figure out how much tuition is. Like, I know I got an 87 on the GRE, 87 percentile, but it was too confusing because it's like tuition is $11,000, but they charge $28,000 more because it's a professional program. So it ended up being like, I think $150,000 for the 3 years, or $120,000. I don't know. Fuzzy math. I couldn't figure it out. But so that's kind of the benchmark. Well, how much does it cost to go to the best school in the country if you're in state? And it's somewhere between $120,000 and $150,000. I don't know. But it's now a 3-year program, UCSF. High Point in North Carolina, $160,000, so kind of getting up there, especially for where they are. North Carolina shouldn't really be pushing $40,000 like that for 4 years. California Health Sciences University, $45,000. But this is one of the times where early assurance is maybe not the worst thing in the world. There is a scholarship for early assurance that it's $40,000. It's broken up really weird. It's like $10,000 the first year, $20,000 the fourth year. So they don't give this huge like discount the first year, like a free year. But the way that they set it up, but it's like a free year of college. So that's 4 years, and I guarantee that the Fresno or where CHSU is cheaper than living in San Francisco or the Bay Area. And then I just don't know much about the Marshall B. Ketchum Fullerton, California College of Pharmacy. I don't know that one, but $49,430, just south of $200,000 for your 4 years there. So what did the new schools add? I don't know. I mean, Texas El Paso, Texas Tyler, at $17,000 per. If it was $17,000 per year, they would add some affordability. But I don't know if that's the case. $17,000 per semester, that's kind of middle of the road. The new privates are actually undercutting the state schools in terms of their prices. So, and that's good to see that we're maybe starting to push the prices of colleges down. I'm going to kind of give you an explanation why I think the tuition will actually go up. But so this is my pharmacy school tuition will rise prediction. As pharmacy schools get smaller, and that's happening already, and it's going to happen en masse a little bit later here in the next couple of years, if we don't get provider status. The current students, let's say there's 100 students paying $30,000 a year, that's $3 million. Let's say that school loses 10 students. Now they have $2.7 million in revenue. So at a regular college, not pharmacy, you would just cut 10% of the faculty costs. So let's say you've got 2 faculty making $150,000 each. That takes care of the $300,000 you lost in tuition. But it doesn't work that way because the accreditation document requires that there be certain faculty that have certain breadth of experience and knowledge. And so you can't really do that. So what you do is you add an extra $3,333 to the tuition of those 90 students. So my expectation is that college tuitions will continue to rise. In your Financial Pharmacist podcast, they talked about how the college debt went from $100,000 in 2010 to $160,000 recently, and it was interesting to hear Kevin Yee say the same thing because those were the years that he actually went and graduated, and he's like, this is crazy because it's just kind of like he just started looking at the same numbers from the school that he went to. So my thought is that when you start hearing they start seeing the class sizes behind you go down, you're going to start seeing tuitions go up. And I don't know if they're going to spread that through the classes that are coming out or if they're going to just do that to the classes as they come in. Some schools will lock your tuition, and that's something that you definitely want to happen. So number one was place. I think that most students pick their pharmacy school by where it is. Second, in some way, the product, which is really, it kind of comes back to place. Like, is it a place that I want to go? Do I feel comfortable with the people that are there? Are they like me? And those types of things. So I went to a school with all Marylanders, so they're sort of like me. But I really applaud Maryland for their diversity, especially with community colleges and taking so many students from the community colleges, because it was really kind of cool that we had such a neat class that came from all over. And then the last one is promotion. I think that promotion is absolutely not the way to go here. If you're trying to make a change, and I'm talking to AACP right now, if you're the president of the University of Mississippi or the dean of the University of Mississippi and now president of AACP, he in his speech, he mentioned that he was going to promote his own college, and then one of the sessions at AACP was somebody promoting his own college. And I think that, it is good to be proud of your school. I think that, Mississippi is a phenomenal school, and that, SEC football Sundays are phenomenal, and that, in the South, that kind of tradition, it's an amazing place. It's an amazing place. But given that, I don't think promotion is the direction that you want to go. What I think pharmacy schools should be doing is figuring out the places where they can reach the students and make it more convenient for them so that they can have jobs and be with their families while they're in school and don't have to move. I think that they can create a much better product in terms of making sure that we don't dilute the pharmacist degree, and we've done that, and we'll have 15,000 graduates. The application numbers are actually going to go below the number of graduates, so they're not going to be able to do that much longer. But you're going to see that the number of graduates is going to go down linearly. I don't think it's going to go down exponentially. The third thing, of course, make it less expensive for the students. This whole, it's a new year, it's a new raise. I think that's crap. I think that we really need to embrace what, Binghamton's doing in New York to make it, $26,000 for in-staters. Really, having $106,000 versus the $200,000 in Fullerton, California. And I get it, New York, California, they might be different. The 3-year programs are saving people money and time away, though I personally would never go to a 3-year program. I would want those summers. I would want that time off. I'd want time to figure out what I'm doing. But that's my own personal thought. But this whole promotion thing is, I think, a complete failure on AACP's part. They mentioned that they had 500,000 impressions in just 2.5 months of their campaign of all their, advocates. Well, my Twitter gets 500,000 impressions in 2.5 months, and I have 8,000 followers. So that 500,000 impressions means about nothing. Maybe that's the person that they hired telling them, hey, look, we got 500,000 impressions on the website and the Instagram and the Facebook and the Twitter that we set up for you. But the colleges of pharmacy, or certainly this promotion, has about the social reach of a well-connected high schooler. It's not good. I mean, 1,000 Instagram followers, 1,000 Twitter followers. This is our 143 representing 143 pharmacy schools. I mean, if you break it down, that's like 10 followers per school. That's just ridiculous. Percentage increases are ridiculous to brag about those. I mean, if I had 2 followers on Twitter and now I have 3, I have a 50% increase. If I had 2 followers and now I have 10, I could put my increase in the hundreds of percents. The web page is what insults me the most. So it's clear that there's no pharmacist behind the AACP webpage. They continue to put up these chemistry people pipetting stuff in. I mean, we're telling the next high schoolers that, hey, you can work in a lab, but that's not us. That's not what we do. But it's clear that they have a third party doing this, and it's just kind of like a bummer. It's not that people don't get what pharmacy is. Just 6-7 years ago, you had 5 applications per applicant. But now schools are encouraging early assurance, and AACP locks them in. And I think that's really criminal that they're doing that to 18 to 20-year-olds. And certainly there are people that are older, but that's a real disappointment. And then there are so many schools and deadlines that you can honestly apply to a couple, then get rejected, then apply to a couple more, then get rejected, then apply to a couple more, and then you get in. But with the PCAT writing down a full point, it's clear the applicant pool has softened significantly, and it's just kind of it's just kind of disappointing to me. So, but anyway, I think promotion is not the way to do it. It's not that people just don't get it. People just don't get what pharmacists do. They absolutely got what pharmacists do in 2010, and it's not that we have these tremendous drops because of the drop in students. If you look at med school and nursing school and PA school, they have tremendous rises. And I know that last year, med school, I think, had a 2% loss of their applications, or applicants, but it really isn't promotion. It's not that. You don't get it. You don't get it at all. It's that students want to be near their homes. Students want to know that when they go and they get the PharmD, that it's going to matter and that what they do matters and that they're going to have a job or a possibility of job waiting for them, and that it's not just let's just raise the price again. It's let's get the price down as low as we can so that we can reduce the burden and we can allow these students to innovate. Anyway, I got to get off my rant there. So the pharmacy news part of the episode, this is like super long episode. I don't think I've ever gone this long. How to be awesome at biostatistics and literature evaluation, part 3 from TLDR Pharmacy. And really that's one of those things that whether it's BCPS or NAPLEX, it does a great job of explaining statistics in a really easy way. Eric Christensen, Thrill of the Case, that's his new book, and he's got a new episode on real-life pharmacology, urinary anticholinergics, episode 25, and then if you missed it, thiazide diuretics, the last one. These are usually anywhere between 15 and like 7 to 15 minutes, so a quick podcast episode, kind of up to date, and he's got a bunch of free stuff on his website. Alex Barker at Happy PharmD, I think he had something about relationships over networking connections, and then going to the podcasts, we have the Mothership, and so Scott Chelson out of Nova Southeastern is started his new channel, which is Politalk RX, and he's going to be in office somewhere, so like following what he's doing. Non-traditional pharmacist Matt Padarini interviews the Wolf of Pharmacy Wall Street, which is kind of cool to hear about somebody who's using their pharmacy degree to figure out what companies are going to go up, what drugs in the pipeline and things like that are probably going to make people money. And then, the rules of surviving Amazon. I think, personally, Darshan and Major are completely wrong on this one. I don't think it's going to be Amazon versus the independents. I think it's going to be Amazon with the independents. Amazon has shown over and over again that they, the independent author, Amazon's the one that lets us put things on a Kindle, lets us put things on an audiobook. I think Amazon is going to be steroids for the independents. I don't think it's going to be the independents at Amazon at all. And that's my personal opinion. But Amazon has always shown that they are, although they're certainly a giant, I think Amazon is going to create tools and options for the independent pharmacist to compete as part of Amazon. You will be assimilated. Love watching Brian Fung and his trailer for what I think is a much longer video, or maybe even a movie one day. Finding Myself trailer in England and Iceland, with CrossFit coming up. Obviously on the women's side, the Icelandics, and then the Australians, in the top 5 on the women's side. It'd be cool to have my daughters at CrossFit Nationals, or, worldwide. That'd be awesome. Paul Tran hasn't done anything, still on vacation. Let's see. Hillary Blackburn, Talk to Your Pharmacist podcast. So pharmacist's role in the patient experience in medically underserved areas, which is kind of cool. You kind of tie that into what the pharmacy schools are doing in terms of serving rural populations. How good is the ROI of the pharmacy degree from your financial pharmacist? That's what started this whole mess that I kind of went on a rant for a really long time. Kevin Yee, is the cost of pharmacy school worth it? He says from his personal experience, that is an unanswerable question. That is an individual question, but I'd skip till around 7 to 10 minutes and start there. He kind of goes off on some tangents before he gets to the meat of it, but it is a live stream, so he's just kind of waiting for people to come on board. Pharmacy Universe, I've not listened to any episodes, but I am going to. That was kind of cool to hear that D-Bide has this podcast. It's called Pharmacy Universe, and probably listen to the episode 4 with Tim Albrecht first and then kind of go backwards through them. And then I will have episodes next week about fitness. I've really struggled with my weight all year. Normally I'm somewhere around 183, 184, through the winter, and then I go back down to 172 as I start running. But this year I have not dropped, and I am at 183, 184, but I am a lot stronger. So maybe I need to look at my metric and get away from weight and start looking at performance. Man, I would love to do CrossFit, but I'm pretty sure my shoulder from high school injury and back from track injury, I don't know if I would survive it, but that would be cool. Anyway, thanks for listening to this episode of the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast. Sorry I went so long with it, but I really think that as we go into this new admission season, that it's important that we're very thorough and, just as Kevin Yee says, individual when responding to, should I go to pharmacy school? I think when somebody says, should I go to pharmacy school, that should be a cue to have a sit-down talk with them, to not say yes or no, to not say that our experience is going to be their experience. And I know Kevin Yee said, look at somebody 10 years down the road and see how they feel, but I think that is not accurate for us, because 10 years down the road would have brought you to 2007. And in 2007, the average graduating debt was around $80,000. You've doubled that since then. So things are not the same as they were 10 years ago. And I think it's you want to have a sit down with that person. And I want to make clear that I don't not like my profession. I love my profession. What I don't like is that I'm seeing this dilution, and as part of a pharmacist couple, we are very responsive to, or we are very much affected by this market saturation that we have going on. But schools have started to lose students. It's happening slowly, but I think it's going to start impacting them more, and maybe they will start cracking down on their own and making sure that the standards are up and things like that. But who knows? All right, well, I'm going to get to bed. So have a good weekend, and I will talk to you next week.
Support for this episode comes from the audiobook Memorizing Pharmacology, a relaxed approach. With over 9,000 sales in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, it's the go-to resource to ease the pharmacology challenge. Available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon.com, in print, ebook, and audiobook. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. Be sure to share the show with the hashtag #PharmacyLeaders.